We now move into a fascinating historical and intellectual session that brings into focus two towering figures from Maharashtra. Please welcome Shri Adwait Athawale, an author and researcher with a strong interdisciplinary foundation, bridging science and humanities. He holds an MSc in physics and a postgraduate diploma in data science from IIIT Bangalore. His research focuses on the emergence of modernity and its impact on IKS. He is the author of a well-researched book on Lokmanya Gangadhar Tilak and has written extensively on culture, history, spirituality and philosophy. Today he presents a paper that examines the debate between Lokmanya Tilak and Gopal Ganesh Agarkar, exploring their contrasting responses to the imposition of the Western knowledge system through the lens of IKS. The title of this paper is Tilak versus Agarkar, the Clash of Knowledge Systems in the Late 19th Century Maharashtra.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste to all. So this is my first research paper, first conference and first paper presentation. So in advance I submit my apologies for any mistake that I would make during the presentation. So title of my the title of my research paper is Tilak versus Agarkar, the Clash of Knowledge Systems during the late 19th century Maharashtra. So as we know, the British rule in Bharata that began in the early decades of 19th century and ended in 1947. What separates British rule from the earlier colonizers is their introduction of the colonial education system. That was created just to create bureaucrats that could perpetuate the British policies in Bharata. That's true. But there was another effect of colonial education on the educated Indians or the consumers of that colonial education. That was they were exposed to Western theories, Western frameworks, or to put in a more broad sense, to Western knowledge systems. Such as many of the scholars in the post-1856, they were exposed to Mill's utilitarianism, or they were fascinated by Immanuel Kant's transcendentalism, or Spencer's sociology, or Auguste Comte's theory of successive stages. So what happened was, some of the intellectuals in that era, they tried to generate or give a response to the either introduction or the imposition of the Western knowledge system. And fortunately, because of the availability of printing technology at that time, most of the response was generated, most of the response was documented, either in the form of books, journals, speeches that were documented in books. So that forms the core data of my paper. Of course, there may be other responses like in art theory, in art forms, but my paper only focuses on these books and articles written by both Tilak and Agarkar. So let us first introduce these two individuals. So Tilak was the paramount figure in the Indian freedom struggle. Many of you might be aware of his name. Agarkar is not well represented or well known figure in India, fortunately. Why, you will know. So both Agarkar and Tilak, they were born in 1856. Tilak in Ratnagiri and Agarkar in a village near Satara. Tilak was born in a dharmic family. His biographer M.C. Kelkar notes that his mother had performed a strict penance of Bhagwan Surya Narayana, and after that Tilak was born. Agarkar was born in a very poor family. He struggled a lot. Both studied BA, and then Tilak pursued LLB and Agarkar pursued MA. So what happened was, both came in contact in Deccan College, Pune. Both wanted to do something for society. And at the very same time, there was one man known as Vishnu Shastri Chiponkar who wanted to start a private school in Pune in response to a government school and to have a nationalistic education. So both Agarkar and now this Vishnu Shastri Chiponkar and his father Krishna Shastri Chiponkar, both are very important figures in the history of the development of Marathi prose, Marathi grammar and Marathi prose. So both approached Chiponkar and they founded New English School in Pune. That was the first joint initiative in which both Tilak and Agarkar participated. Now the natural evolution of the school was obviously in a college. So they established Deccan Education Society And through that society, very famous Ferguson College of Pune was founded. The second evolution was obviously, as Chiponkar was also editor of Nibandhamala, a magazine. First, Aryabhushan Press was established, and then two newspapers very central to the history of modern Maharashtra. Kesari in Marathi was founded, and Maratha in English was founded. Agarkar resumed the editorship of Kesari and Tilak of Maratha. But the problem was this whole framework or this whole establishment was very peculiar, because Vishnu Sasi Chiponkar was socially conservative, Tilak was socially conservative. Many of the people in Deccan Education Society, they were also socially conservative. But M.G. Ranade, OG liberal of India, he had a great influence in Deccan Education Society. And Agarkar, who was a radical liberal or radical feminist and all that of epithets that you can apply to him, that we apply today to liberals, he was the chief editor of Kesari. So naturally, his position, editorial position, was a kind of official position of Kesari. So what happened was, during that time, some issues, social issues erupted. One of that was Age of Consent Bill that was proposed by Malabari of RC. So Agarkar wrote one thing, Tilak wrote one thing. There was another scholar, V.S. Apte. That Apte is a very famous Sanskrit scholar. Either Sanskrit to Hindi or Sanskrit to English dictionary of Apte is even used today. So he wrote another thing. So there was a lot of confusion, and naturally Agarkar resigned from Kesari and he founded a new newspaper titled as Sudharaka, Reformer. And he continued preaching his liberal ideology, and Tilak resumed the editorship of Kesari. So that was this was the split. The problem with the historiography of this particular episode is, historians focus only about the controversy that erupted around the Age of Consent Bill. But the split between Tilak and Agarkar was not just about this controversy. It was about the paradoxical responses that they generated towards the introduction or imposition of the Western knowledge system. And my paper attempts to analyze these responses and to arrive at a result who was in more alignment with IKS and who was not. So I have developed one testable research hypothesis for this. So my hypothesis is, the debate in between Tilak and Agarkar was because of the two intellectual traditions. One, on the one side you have Agarkar, who was a liberal, who was influenced by Mill, Spencer, and even by Auguste Comte. And on the other side you have Tilak, who was influenced by Sankhya and Vedanta. And because of these differences, their socio-political positions were opposite. So naturally, the first point that you want to understand is whether Agarkar had really inherited the colonial lens, or whether he had really internalized the Western frameworks. The second point is whether he had applied that colonial lens to analyze the Indian knowledge systems or the Indian history. Because even I can inherit the colonial lens and can I use it to, say, analyze the Chinese history. But that's not we are interested in. We are only interested in the modern Indian history. So the important point is whether he has used the colonial lens to understand the Indian knowledge system. Then the third point is, or the third hypothesis is, Tilak has resisted the imposition of the Western knowledge system, and he has also generated a response, a comparative analysis of the Western knowledge system through the frameworks of the IKS. So that's my hypothesis. Now literature review. So you can have four types of works on this. The first is works on Tilak, second is works on Agarkar, then works on in the 19th century India, and works on Tilak versus Agarkar. Now if you study the works on Tilak or works on Agarkar, like you have biography on Tilak by N.C. Kelkar or Tamhankar or Dhananjay Keer, or on Agarkar you have a decent biography in English written by Aravinda Kanachari. they only focus on either his life or they analyze his writings, but none of them focuses on the IKS aspects. The same problem appears in the analysis in the works on 19th century India, especially by, say, you can have a very fine example of R.C. Mazumdar, his 3-volume or 4-volume work on Indian freedom struggle. In the first volume, he has analyzed the ideology of Tilak, but again, only aspects that he has considered are socio-political and cultural. The very last category is important here, works on Tilak and Agarkar. Unfortunately, forget about English, even in Marathi we have a lacuna of works. There are only 2 works that can be considered. One is by historian Yadi Phadke. But again, that work only traces the history of the debate between Tilak and Agarkar. There is other work, but it is a Marathi play, drama, written by Vishram Bedekar. Now you don't consider drama as the intellectual source for such analysis, that's why I have skipped it. So my paper is the only one which analyzes this debate through the lens of IKS. Now research methodology. Now our aim is to test this hypothesis. So the research approach is a qualitative research because you are not performing your analysis on a numerical data. You are not supposed to compute mean or median, and such quantitative analysis is not applicable here. So here I have only performed the qualitative analysis, and the core data here is writings of Tilak and Agarkar. That's why the analysis is textual analysis. Then data collection. My entire research is based on primary sources. A 3-volume edited work is available. A 3-volume collection of Agarkar's works is available. That has been published by Maharashtra Rajya Sahitya Samskruti Mandal. First 2 volumes I have used first 2 volumes because 3rd volume contains some one translation of Hamlet by Agarkar in Marathi, titled as Vikara Vilasita, and his essay on sentence constructions or the grammatical aspects of sentence, and other some sci-fi type works. That's it. Not sci-fi, but how is Neptune? That type of works that you find in some science journal, science magazines. For Tilak, you have 5-volume collected works published by the Kesari publication. So I have used only primary sources, no secondary source has been used. And everything is available in public domain. Only problem is it is in Marathi. You can cross-check my references. Now, analytical framework. So obviously, the first point is to identify whether Agarkar had accepted the colonial lens or not. Then the most important point is to establish the link between Agarkar's colonial lens, his reformist tendencies, and his criticism of Dharma. Why Dharma? Because Dharma is the core component of the IKS. And I mean to show that his acceptance of the colonial lens leads his critical stance towards Dharma. Then evaluating Tilak's resistance to Western knowledge system and examining the Tilak's use of IKS to evaluate the Western knowledge system. So this is methodology. Now we will begin the analysis. So the first point is whether Agarkar had positively accepted the colonial lens. So if you study the Agarkar's articles, then you will find that he had wholeheartedly accepted British superiority. He had praised Macaulay, then Bradlaugh or Ripon, Lord Ripon, etc. And that praise was highly overwhelming. And he has also supported colonial education to the extent that he has said that the light of colonial education has provided us, for the first time in the history, the real attempt to decipher the meaning of Vedas has become, as if Sayanacharya and Shankaracharya were stupid. So he has also wrote extremely derogatory remarks about Hindus. He has said Hindus are culturally senile, they are useless, they are lazy. He has also stated that Ramayana is a history of colonialism. Then you know that Tripundra, that Smartas apply on their forehead, or Vaishnavas apply Urdhva Pundra, right? So interestingly, Agarkar has conjectured one weird hypothesis that These Tripundra and Urdhvapundra are signs of slavery. So, and again, that kumkuma that or bindi that women apply, they also come into a similar. Agarkar has also commented on similarly on bindi and kumkuma as well. Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg. If you actually go through all of the literature, you will find slanderous, abusive, and extremely derogatory remarks about Hindus. Now, we will come to the Agarkar's analysis of dharma. So it goes like this. Thousands of years ago, man was primitive. He was not able to decipher the causation behind various natural events. So what he did was, he extrapolated or superimposed his own consciousness, his own behavior on various entities that were present, animate or inanimate, in the nature, like wind or sun. So what happened was the sun becomes one god, or wind becomes one god. And similarly, you have a polytheistic system where many gods were there, and because of the ignorance, the primitive man or a tribal man, specifically said tribal man, conjectured to make sense of the world that was around him. So in this way, the dharma began, or religion began. Now, interestingly, Agarkar accepts dharma and religion as the same entity. So that's why I have used dharma here. So that's the first point. Now, as we know, in a society, whoever is a powerful person, you tend to bend before that person. So similarly, for protection or to save yourself from some natural calamity, this primitive man, tribal man who was ignorant, he feared natural disasters. So he started worshipping these polytheistic gods. And that worship was transactional in nature. That is, they used to offer, say, lamb or any food, and now how to and after that god was supposed to offer a protection. So what important point here is, the root of dharma or religion, according to Agarkar, is anthropomorphism, and the root of anthropomorphism is fear and ignorance. That is, the root of dharma or religion, according to Agarkar, is fear and ignorance. So naturally, the next postulate or the next natural conclusion of this thesis is, as you evolve intellectually, as you are able to decipher the abstract mechanisms of abstract or the real mechanisms behind the working of the universe, naturally that will lead to decline in dharma. So that's what Agarkar has said. And those who are familiar with sociology, they will know that monotheism is understood as some kind of linear progress after polytheism by many sociologists, especially by Auguste Comte. So next is analysis of the evolution of the concept of Devata. Agarkar has written multiple, at least 4 to 5 articles on the origin or how the entity Devata came into around, titled as Devatotpatti. Now this analysis coincides with the analysis of dharma. So you have 2 objects, inanimate and animate, and you project your own consciousness onto these objects. Inanimate, like say plants, we worship Tulsi, right? Or animate objects like cow. Inanimate objects like stone. So that's how Devata came into around, according to Agarkar. And he has also given some extremely weird, sensational and ludicrous etymology of Devata. He has specifically said, very specific, that the root of concept of Devata is Pishacha. Pishacha means ghost, right? You know, Bhuta, Preta, Pishacha, that whole underworld gang which exists in our pantheon. And he has also referred Bhagavan Mahadeva as Mahapishacha in a very derogatory manner. And remember, this is just a tip of the iceberg. I haven't included what he has called Bhagavan Sri Krishna here. It will be extremely blasphemous. So again, if you go further in the article, he has made a very asinine remark that if you analyze correctly, you will come to a conclusion that there is no distinction between Atma, Nirguna, Nirakara, Ishvara and Pishacha. Now, only a deranged moron can write this statement. Those who are very familiar with the Bharatiya philosophy, they can refute this within seconds. Now, does Agarkar's thoughts align with the Western knowledge system? So, those who have studied Herbert Spencer, they can accurately predict that all of this has been taken from the first part of the first volume of Spencer's Principles of Sociology. And Agarkar has accepted this. He has not plagiarized Spencer. He has accepted that I have taken this whole analysis from Spencer. Then, as I said earlier, there is a remarkable resemblance of Agarkar's views with Comte's theory of progression. And the most important part here is there is no serious attempt to understand Dharma through indigenous sources such as Mimamsa. Now you have a very sophisticated analysis of Dharma. So the most accepted the Lakshana of Dharma is Chodana Lakshana to Dharma that appears in Mimamsa Sutra. Then you have Abhyodaya Nishreyasani Dharma that appears in Vaisheshika Sutra, or definitions like Dharana Dharma Mityahu Dharmo Dharayate Prajaha that appears in Mahabharata. Nowhere in Agarkar's writing you will find he is referring to such works. He has totally accepted Spencer's views without any critical evaluation or without going to the original indigenous sources about the analysis of Dharma. Now next. The link between Agarkar's internalization of the Western knowledge system, his reformist tendencies and his criticism of Dharma. Now imagine, no need to imagine, consider the root of Dharma as fear and ignorance. So naturally, the effects of Dharma, that is in our case, most important are Murti Puja and rituals. So whatever that has roots in ignorance and fear, obviously we should discard it, or in other words, we should reform it. So that's where the reformation comes. It is not similar to the reformation as initiated by Protestants against Catholicism. So Agarkar has specifically said that rituals should diminish. Rituals like Sandhya, Vaishwadeva, but again, not just Sandhya, Vaishwadeva or Somayaga or Haviryajna or Parkayajna. It also includes your simple puja that you perform at your home. So everything that is associated with sacred, that should either diminish, or the mode in which you associate with the sacred should be reformed. That's what the original Agarkar's contention is. And he has also advocated the complete disappearance of idol worship. I have given references to his original work, one can verify them. And he has also said that the worship of formless God, that is what Abrahamics do, that is far better than Murti Puja. Now next, analysis of Tilak. So views on colonial education. Okay. So views on colonial education. So Tilak has criticized colonial education because it induces a materialism and it also avoids dharmic education. Now I don't have enough time, so I will not spend my time on this. Now Tilak was extremely proud of Dharma and Vedanta. He has said that we have lost everything. The only thing that has remained with us is our Dharma, and we should protect it at any cost. And he has also critiqued Christianity by stating that because of the lack of intellectual sophistication in Christianity, Christianity was unable to cope with the emergence of the modern science. But he was very confident about Vedanta that one day science will eventually merge into Vedanta. That was his hypothesis, or that was his statement. And he has also specifically stated that any reform that you want to do, that must be in accordance with Dharma Shastra. In fact, In one of his articles, which is titled as Hindutva and Reform, he has very specifically stated any reform should be in accordance with Hindutva. The next point, he has also stated that now as Agarkar has stressed the decline of Bharata because of Dharma, Tilak has given a paradoxical response that Bharat's decline was not due to Dharma but due to its abandonment. Now how Tilak defined Dharma, this is very interesting. Tilak has given two definitions. First definition goes like this. प्रामाण्य बुद्धिर्भेदेषु साधना नाम अनेकता उपास्या नाम नेमश्चैत धर्मस्य लक्षणम. Now this definition has been cited by the late Supreme Court Justice Gajendra Gadkar. Only problem is he has given a wrong reference. It has not appeared in Gita Rahasya. Tilak has developed this definition in 1900 in Pune, one of the speech that has been reported in one book which was published in 1910 by Appaji Kulkarni, and the definition appears on page number 224. Now this definition separates Hindu Dharma, not Hindus, Hindu Dharma from Christianity and Islam. But after 15 years, Tilak thought that it was not sufficient. The definition was already supported by a great Nayayika, Bhimacharya Jhalkikar, who was also, I think, if I'm not wrong, he is also an author of Nyaya. Even after that, Tilak created a new definition after 15 years that has been published in a magazine, Chitramay Jagat. That definition is Dharmamenam samalambya vidhivis samsrutasya shruti smriti puranoktaih karma praptaih rathabiva svesve karamanya bhirata shraddha bhakti samanvitaha shastroktachaarashilascha savai hindus sanatanaha. Now I will not waste time on the explanation. What this definition does is it separates a practicing Hindu from a practicing Abrahamic. And the most important part here, no anthropomorphic analysis has been performed. His definitions are very much in alignment with the traditional point of view. Now next, he views on Herbert Spencer. Tilak has written articles, 3 to 4 articles on Spencer. First article was written because one of the book written by Spencer, First Principles, the first part of the first principle, the unknowable, was translated in Marathi as Adneya Mimamsa by one individual named Phadke, and he had sent that book to Tilak for review. So to answer that call, Tilak wrote one article in which he has said that it is unnecessary to hold Spencer in high regard in Bharata. What you say, the theory of unknowable, that has been already established developed in Bharatiya text, but the context is obviously different. So we know that Brahma and Maya, they are termed as anirvachaniya. So in that sense he is referring. And Bharatiya theory is also more sophisticated. He has specifically said this. And he has also advocated the comparative analysis of Spencer with Bharatiya philosophy, and he has also done it in 3 articles. First 2 articles were Neya Mimamsa, part 1, part 2, and when Spencer died, he wrote an obituary, and in that article he also again analyzed Spencer. So, first Tilak advocated the unification of knowledge, all the branches of knowledge, and his hypothesis was Vedanta is that system which can unify all forms of knowledge. And he has said the knowable aspect of Spencer's philosophy, that is the categorization, the ontology of world, that aligns with Sankhya and Nyaya. Aligns doesn't mean equal. Categorization as done by Sankhya and Nyaya are different from Spencer, but you can establish a correspondence between them. That was Tilak's hypothesis. And Vedanta, as I have said earlier, the unknowable and Vedanta are similar according to Tilak. But he has also highlighted a difference between Spencer and Vedanta. So he has said that you have in Satchidanandatmak Brahma, you have Sat, that is the existence. So if you go ahead with Spencer analysis, you only arrive at Sat, that is the existence, that there exists something which is unknowable. But the rest of the epithets like Chit or Ananda, that you cannot explain with Spencer's philosophy. Then there is most important difference between Spencer and Vedanta is regarding consciousness. So Spencer accepts Charabaka, that is, we know Yavat Jivet, Sukhat Jivet, Runam Krutva Krutam Pipet, Vasmi Bhutasya Dehasya Punaragamanam Kutaha, right? That Charabaka approach. So Vedanta doesn't accept this, and Tilak has specifically highlighted this. And he has also rejected Spencer's anthropomorphic analysis, which Agarkar had subscribed very specifically. Then Gita Rahasya. Now I don't have much time, so I will limit this. Tilak has tried to define modern science by using Sankhya framework. So we know that in Sankhya the fundamental substance is Prakriti, which develops into a world for the enjoyment or benefit of, we say, conscious Purusha. So how diversity arises from single fundamental substance, that's what Tilak calls modern science. The definition, you may agree or disagree, he has used the IKS framework to define modern science. That's what I want to highlight. Then there is a very fine definition of knowledge. Here the highlighting word is observing Atman or Sakshi Atma. So he has not accepted the consciousness, Charvaka theory. He has accepted the existence of Sakshi Atma. Okay. So, 1 minute, please. Okay. So he has also created a threefold framework in Rahasya: Adhibhautika, Adhidaivika and Adhyatmika. He is translator of Gita Rahasya has translated Adhidaivika. Suptankar translated Adhidaivika as theological, because Tilak was comparing this framework with Auguste Comte, and he merely stated that I don't agree with Comte's philosophy where you have a Adhibhautik framework as supreme, but Tilak accepted the Adhyatmika framework. And the last is a criticism of materialism. So Tilak has formulated a 5-stage theory of materialism, and he has also criticized it and stated that the spirituality or adhyatmikata is superior to materialism. And there is also a constructive criticism of philosophers like Hobbes, Helvetius, Kant, Mill, Bentham, Sidgwick and Green. So in the end, my hypothesis that Agarkar, who had internalized the WKS and had used that frameworks to understand IKS, that first part has been vindicated, and the second part, which is Tilak's identification with IKS and its use and how Tilak used that IKS or IKS frameworks to understand the WKS, that also has been vindicated. So I conclude with this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adwait, for a first-time presenter, as you claim to be. I think you just wanted to, win some brownie points. You clearly did not appear as a first-time presenter. Wonderfully presented. That reassuredness, the confidence. Please keep it up, and may Ma Shada bless you. Unfortunately, we don't have time for now. These are blessings for you, beta. Please accept these in all grace. So wonderful. The proceedings will include his full paper, and any questions that the readers may have will be directed to him, and he will, I'm sure, respond to all of those with his research and confidence. Thank you so much, please.